What is the view of the government's new choices from British business? John Caudwell, who's founder of the mobile retailer Phones for You, is a billionaire who grew up on a council estate. He's been a Conservative Party donor in the past and recently argued that everybody, except the poorest, should accept a drop in their living standards as we try to recover from the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. And he joins me now. John, welcome. Thanks for coming on to the show. Can I ask you for your first reaction to Rishi Sunak? Because, you were making some very interesting points about the way to get out of this. The main burden should be on the shoulders of those who could afford it most and so on. What do you think of the show so far?
Well, I think Rishi ended up inheriting a hell of a mess, of course, but most of the mess was of his own creation. And I think I should really state very firmly that I am 100% behind Rishi now, because he is our Prime Minister and we all have to pull together to get out of this mess. So condemning past actions is perhaps not helpful unless we can learn from them. When I started pushing Caudwell pandemic recovery in March 2020 as a way of regenerating the UK economy, and the centre point being of this, creating a tax-free enterprise zone for environmental renewable energy and environmental businesses to come to the UK, to become a brain drain into the UK, based on tax advantages and other methodologies. That was to grow the UK economy in years to come, and at the same time help solve the environmental problem. Now, none of that was done, and what Rishi did, he poured a lot too much money into the pockets of some people and too little into other people's pockets, and helped stoke this inflation, which has then, of course, been made worse by the Ukraine war and the pandemic.
Yes. Well, I've been looking at your own recovery plan, and the word investment comes again and again and again. Invest in renewable energy, invest in industry in general, infrastructural investment, and so on. And yet, as they try and fill this great big black hole right at the moment, it does seem that infrastructure and other long-term investment is going to be cut. So what would be your advice to Rishi Sunak now about that?
Well, he still needs to look at Caudwell pandemic recovery as a way to the future. The trouble is now he's got so less opportunity than he did have in March 2020, when some of that money that he poured into people's pockets and that started to fuel this hyperinflation could have been poured into growth of infrastructure and growth of investment. Any businessman knows they've got to invest in the business, grow the business in order to do, in my case, charitable works. So the government's no different. It's no different to a business or a business owner with charitable instincts, because what we have to do is grow the GDP of the UK, grow the profits of the UK, and pour a lot of that extra profit into the hands of the poor people and the disabled people and the people who are really struggling in life, to look after those poorer members of society. And that opportunity...
I'm really interested in the argument. Yeah, I'm interested in the argument you're making, John, because again and again, the new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, looks back at his time as Chancellor during the pandemic and the furlough scheme and the rest of it. And he says, that's the kind of guy I am. That's my priorities. And you're saying those are the wrong ones.
Yeah, they were disastrous mistakes, I'm afraid. And I know Rishi would never accept that, but nearly all the packages and measures he put in, he got wrong. And it could have been done so much better. I mean, for example, and I don't want to just sit here condemning the Tory party, but for example, paying 80% to people to sit at home for 100% of the time, not allowing them to work for their current employer for 2 days a week or 1 day a week, saying it's all or nothing. Well, how preposterous is that? Because we're just pouring my tax dollars straight into the pockets of people who could have worked for their employer for a day or two a week, been paid less money and helped their employer through the pandemic. It's a nonsense. There's so many issues like that.
If you've got dollars, you're a lucky man at the moment. But putting that to one side, putting that to one side, you did donate to the Conservatives some way back, partly because you were so unhappy or worried about Jeremy Corbyn. Looking at Rishi Sunak so far, can you see yourself doing it again?
Well, Rishi would have to be a lot better Prime Minister than he was Chancellor. And if that happens, and if I think his policies are really great for the future of Britain, and by that I don't mean rich people, I mean the people of Britain in their entirety, and he's doing all the right things, I may support again. But I will support any political party that puts into practice the right policies. It's just that the Conservative Party, in the majority of my lifetime, are the people that I've judged had the best policies.
But not necessarily in the future. Can I ask, we're all waiting for this statement now on the 17th of November, and we're going to see where tax rises are coming, where spending cuts are coming, and so on. What, from the point of view of business, would you most like to see?
Well, that's a really difficult question, but without doubt, what we need to do is focus on productivity. The UK's productivity, as we all know, is one of the poorest in Western society. We need to focus like mad on productivity. Now, that's very easily said, and Theresa May said growth and productivity, and all the Tory party leaders say growth and productivity. But where are the growth and productivity coming from? And what we don't do is come with a solution of how to achieve growth and productivity. And what we've got to do in that growth and productivity is come up with solutions and formulas. Now, I've come up with the growth formula, which is the Environmental Technology Centre. Productivity is a bit more complicated, but definitely a huge incentive to businesses to invest in computerization, robotics, anything that will improve the productivity and lessen the dependency on a human being, so that one human being produces a lot more product. And incidentally, that would be a real boost to the economy as well, because at the moment we're short of employees to do any expanded GDP growth.
And one of the things we're all talking about, but not very often in public, it seems to be almost the elephant in the room, is Brexit and the need or otherwise of the British economy to bring in more skilled labour. What's your view on that?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. And I've always said my immigration policy would be very simple. I would have anybody that could bring value to Britain would be automatically granted access to Britain. So whether it's wealthy business people, whether it's skilled workers, anybody to bring the right skills to Britain, I would allow in. And those are the only people other than humanitarian. So we'd take our fair share of refugees from Syria, from Afghanistan, would behave as a humanitarian nation, looking after countries around the world where we've got dispossessed people, and looking after people where there's a genuine connection to somebody in the UK, and that person, a spouse or a partner of somebody in the UK, of course, they would be able to come in. So we have to be careful not to reduce immigration to the point that we don't have the right skills coming into the country.
But not the kind of free-for-all, as it were, that some people thought we had under the EU, not free movement of people.
No, absolutely not. I absolutely would not do that. I think the Tory party have got it right to a large extent, but we need to have a free influx of people where they can genuinely prove that they add value to the UK, and then the humanitarian part of it as well.
John Caudwell, really interesting talking to you. Thanks very much for joining us this evening.